Hello, this is the interviews video for research methods. If I can just remind you as you listen to this video to write the Cornell notes as best you can and also answer the questions that I'll ask as we go through the video. Once you've finished, write this up as neatly as you can into your mind map and have a little look through some of the additional textbooks. Okay, let's have a look at some different types of interview. Interviews and questionnaires are types of self-report techniques. This means the participant themselves are relaying the information to the researcher about themselves. Now obviously in an interview it's a face-to-face technique, whereas a questionnaire would be kind of postal, it would be kind of remote data collection technique. But in both situations the participant is reporting on themselves and their own experience. Interviews have some of the same issues as questionnaires, so I'm going to deal with those in the next video. Now these are issues about having open questions, closed questions, questions that seem to be leading you one way or another, and something called social desirability bias. But we'll deal with those in the next video. Okay, let's look at unstructured interviews first. So an unstructured interview will be a situation where the interviewer comes to you and they've not necessarily prepared every question that they're going to lead in with. It's quite free-flowing. It's more like an informal conversation, a chat with a friend. And you can imagine that would be a particular experience for you coming into it. And if you are sat there with a researcher who is giving you the full attention, they're letting you develop your conversation as it goes, you might seem to feel that you get along a little bit better with that researcher. You might feel that you trust them a little bit more. You might give a little bit more information. You might, if it was just a kind of a robotic list of questions to go through. So this higher level of rapport will lead to an increased amount of information given. Might also get some unexpected insights. We might find out things that we weren't expecting to find out because we're allowing these questions to kind of free flow around the subject matter. The problem with this though, in order for it to be an effective interview, you're going to need a very highly trained interviewer who is going to allow the conversation to divert into other areas, but not to the extent where it just goes off a complete tangent and there's no relevant information. And obviously to be able to build a rapport with someone, you need to kind of get along with them as well. The other alternative is we could have a structured interview. Simply we have a list of questions that need to be answered in order. They're set before the interview and the conversation will not alter from those structured questions. If the conversation alters, you just get them back onto the next question. You can give this structured interview to anybody and to read out. They're simply going to read the questions and record the responses. So, you can use an unskilled interviewer, and that's absolutely fine. It's quite easy to replicate this. If you are going to have 100 interviews and you want to see if there's patterns, you might want to have a structured question list. So you can repeat the interview and see if we find the same things. If another researcher wants to carry out your study and they're going to do an interview style, you can just give them your list of questions as well. The problem with this is you are going to lose that sense of connection with the participant there and the interviewer. They're maybe not going to give as much away as you would hope. Our other option is maybe an in-between mix. So we have a mix of structured topic areas that you would like to cover and generally questions you might ask, but you have the flexibility to, okay, if the responders go in an interesting direction, let them run with it and take some notes about some unexpected stuff. So we've got this flexibility, so we are able to kind of develop these novel ideas and kind of run with them. Because we've got the set questions, in fact this is a bonus to the structured interview as well, is you're going to be able to get questions that are quite similar, and this would probably help you analyze the responses a lot more easily. The problem with this again is you are going to need a trained interviewer to understand when to allow the participant to kind of run with their ideas and when to shut them down and try and move it back to the original topic. Okay, so some general issues with interviews as themselves. Well, we have something called interviewer effects. So this is any way in which the interviewer themselves could influence the participants' responses. So this could be just personal characteristics about who they are. If you're asked certain questions by one person, you might answer very differently. If you're asked the same questions by someone else, you might find a question from someone who's from one particular person perfectly reasonable, and you could maybe feel it quite inappropriate to get asked questions, the same questions by someone else. I want you to have a little think about that for a question I'm going to set you. And also we might also have social desirability bias as well. So we might actually want to impress this individual. So we might try and give them the answers that they're after, or make up some things. Okay, responses from an interview could actually be quite open to interpretation. You might listen to what someone has to say, and you might read maybe too much into what they've got to say, or they could be maybe a little bit ambiguous, and you could kind of totally misunderstand what they've said. So the researcher themselves, the interviewer, could maybe misinterpret what's been said. Issues with designing questions for interview are the same for questionnaires, and we're going to talk about those in the next video. So before you come into class, I want you to write something down for me. I want you to have a little think about these interview effects. I want you to think about who the researcher could be and who the participant could be. And I want you to think of 4 scenarios where a particular type of researcher would go into a situation where they'd interview a particular type of participant, and you feel the combination of characteristics between those two groups of people might influence significantly the results. So I'll give you an example. Maybe an academic, a university lecturer who is very, very intelligent, very, very smart, very well dressed, quite intimidating, goes to an area of a rundown city where there's a drug gang, and they like to interview the drug gang. Perhaps that combination of differences in age and status could actually influence the interview. So I want you to think of another 4 of those combinations for me, and I'll ask those at the start of the class. Okay, that's it.